Hi all, welcome to The Void. I'm Skinny. I will be reviewing the Divergent trilogy by Veronica Roth. I was brought to this series by the movie starring Shailene Woodley in the titular role. The book includes Divergent, Insurgent, and Allegiant. The protagonist of the trilogy is a 16-year-old girl named Beatrice Pryor who comes from a faction within a fenced-off dystopian Chicago, Illinois from the USA. The city is run by 5 factions: Abnegation, Candor, Erudite, Dauntless, and Amity. Abnegation is centered around selflessness and civil service, making it ideal for running the central government. The selflessness extends to their duties by handing spare food to the factionless, their choice to live a lifestyle without any luxuries, with their functional grey clothing and stone square houses reinforcing this lifestyle. Candor is a faction comprised of black and white suited lawyers, judges, and other seekers of the truth, spectacled and dressed in blue. Erudite are the pursuers of knowledge, finding new ways to solve problems and engineer plans for the future of humanity. Dauntless are the security of all factions. Their black leather, tattoos, and piercings give the appearance of intimidation or the ultimate expression of freedom. Wearing fiery colours, Amity work the farms on the outskirts of the city, providing an essential service. Playing games and chatting amongst each other during their time creates a strong bond unlike any of the other factions. Living in a society under strict factions, they are bound to be outliers. Those cast off by the factions, the factionless, are comprised of those who fail to pass their initiation. Abandoned by friends and family, being factionless is considered to be worse than death for some. Forced to work as sanitation workers for food, not everyone is so lucky. Born into abnegation, Beatrice Pryor is the youngest child of Natalie and Andrew Pryor, her brother being 3 years older. Jaded with the disconnected life of abnegation, Beatrice joins Dauntless as a means of protection and freedom. Being the smallest of the initiates, the trials are exceptionally grueling for Beatrice, now going by the name Triss. Maintaining a place in Dauntless and keeping her divergence a secret proves to be difficult in the current political climate. Because of the faction's high standards of conformity, divergents are people who have aptitude for multiple factions. Most it's 2, rare for 3 or more. Being divergent within the factions is far more dangerous than being among the factionless, as the erudite find them to be unpredictable to manage. Now that I've given a brief summary, I'm issuing a spoiler warning as I'm beginning my review. My criteria for review is character development, pacing, world building, set rules and consequences, and characters' decisions impacting the world around them. Starting from the top, characters such as Triss Pryor and Tobias Eaton go through so much that the supporting cast lack any development to have an emotional bearing within the story. Triss experiences the loss of her friends and family, becoming more guilt-ridden throughout the trilogy. The physical and mental exhaustion is reoccurring throughout, developing sympathy for myself as a reader, making her by far my favourite character in the series. Tobias Eaton is the main male lead, who is Triss's Dauntless instructor and future boyfriend. Growing up the son of an abusive father and abandoned by his mother, Tobias fled abnegation, joining Dauntless 2 years prior to the trilogy, to become physically stronger. After his own initiation, Tobias frequently injects himself with the fear simulation serum to overcome his 4 fears. Towards the last chapters, he learns that those lost loved ones have a positive role in your life. Other than the 2 leads, characters such as Triss's best friend Christina, Triss's brother, and Will's sister Kara lack character depth to feel important. After frequent character deaths, I hadn't felt connected to them, or that they had any weight within the story. To discuss the villains of the series, erudite leader Janine Matthews and the Bureau of Genetic Welfare representative David weren't interesting enough or lacked enough book time to be fleshed out to be hated. I give character development 2.5 stars out of 5. Moving on to pacing, I found that it flowed well with the exception of some plot points. In Allegiant, Triss and Tobias consume a lot of time fighting each other, and Juanita's character served the only purpose of escalating the couple's conflict and killing off a character. If the cast had their own plot threads to complete, Triss and Tobias wouldn't have to do the majority of the heavy lifting. I'm giving pacing 4 stars. My next category is world building. The first thing to address would be the faction system and their larger purpose. I found that only 2, maybe 3 factions would actually work. The factions that could work are Amity and Erudite, and maybe Dauntless, but Candor and Abnegation couldn't. Abnegation, with its strict rules and soul-crushing routines, destroys individuality and creativity for progression in societal advancement. Candor lacks the depth to be considered important. It could work as a sub-faction to supplement Dauntless and Erudite. Dauntless could use Candor the same way the police use detectives. Candor could help Erudite with focus and internal affairs. When we were introduced to Dauntless through Triss, it's understood that not many people transfer, making the faction's membership comprised of faction-born. In recent years, Dauntless implement a cut policy for those who don't make the top 10, leaving everyone else factionless. The obvious setup for Dauntless was to give the protagonist a challenge to overcome without practicality to fit. To have the job of policing the entirety of a city's populace will need the largest demand. If you train people and cut them because they weren't good enough for the top 10, they will have one place to go: the factions. The factions have no currency other than work shift for food or food. Someone from the remaining 10 could help train, organize, and overthrow the society that abandoned them. If it were for 2 years, it's still 20 people who could train the factions. Moving away from the factions, I expect more from a dystopian future than serums that create simulations, wipe your memory, or force you to tell the truth, or kill you. Each of the factions are in possession of a serum. Dauntless used the simulation serum to force initiates into overcoming their fears. Candor used the truth serum for interrogations. Amity spiked their population's food with peace serum to keep their population passive. Erudite have a death serum, and Abnegation has a memory serum. The simulation serum is interesting, but the introduction of subsequent serums quickly lacked depth or reason. So for world building, I've given 3.5 stars out of 5. For set rules and consequences and impact within the story, I've given 5 stars. Triss receives a bullet wound in Divergent, and it becomes a reoccurring injury when she physically has to do things. Despite being a reactive character, Triss manages to accomplish a lot within the story, becoming the center point for world-changing events. To wrap up my review, I would like to address the ending of the series. The issue with killing off the protagonist is you need someone or something to fill that void. With Triss gone, the supporting cast lacked emotional investment, leaving readers angry. Caleb's character hadn't found redemption. Kara and Christina lacked development. The only character who was important is Tobias, but the extent of his character was to be Triss's rock. I'm erasing a star for the ending because it was just a swerve to make the ending bittersweet, leaving my review 14 stars out of 20. When condensed, it is 3.5 stars out of 5. To add a 5-minute fanfic, I would still have Triss take the backpack from her brother to destroy the wall guarding the memory serum, which was armed to erase the populace of Chicago's memories. The Bureau of Genetic Research feared the civil war within the city will destroy potential research on the genetically damaged. Inside the outer room, Triss is gassed with the death serum, but due to her genetics, she overcomes it, but is severely weakened when she enters the inner office. I found it overkill that David would be inside. Realistically, if he set off a memory bomb, someone in his position would be hidden at a secure location. After Triss reactivates the serum to affect the Bureau staff, she collapses the same way in the book. Switching to Tobias's perspective, he regroups with Kara at a hospital instead of the morgue. Informing him Triss's memories have been erased like the others, Tobias races to her room, unable to accept the truth. Stopping at a door by an exiting Christina, teary-eyed, she hugs him, her sobs confirming that Triss, they knew, is gone. The pair watch Triss converse with the doctor from behind a glass window. Her expression remains empty and confused. Wanting redemption for his actions, Caleb walks inside, wishing for a fresh start with his sister. Not recognizing this new Triss, Tobias races off, unwilling to force his feelings onto her. Christina, confronting Tobias over his theft of a memory serum vial, works here as he still learns the importance that those who've passed in life imprint on those left behind. During the 2-year time jump, Triss works under Joanna Reyes as an immigration officer as Chicago opens up to the outside world. With her expert judge of character and lack of physicality, she thrives in a new position. Receiving paperwork for a work permit, Triss subconsciously recognizes the employer's name, Tobias Eaton. Having heard her best friend Christina slip his name out in conversation, only to be shushed by Kara, made her wonder who he is. Writing down Tobias's living address, she leaves her office. Once outside, she hears a familiar train passing by. Overwhelmed with the urge to chase the train, she gives into her instincts and takes off. Climbing aboard the train, her eyes scan the horizon, landing on familiar landmarks. The Ferris wheel and the old Dauntless compound, even the erudite building, give her a feeling of deja vu. Knocking on the door, she's met by a surprised Tobias, who initially slams the door in her face, unwilling to hurt either of them further. Insisting they speak, Tobias reluctantly opens the door, recognizing Triss's ferocity. Triss asks him how does he know her, to which he invites her inside, ready for a fresh start. In conclusion, regardless of my critiques of the world building and cast development, I found characters like Triss and Tobias Eaton a good study for character study myself. If I were to recommend this trilogy for any reason, it would be for the relationship between the two leads due to how well it's written. They were flawed as individuals, but saw their other halves in each other. Leave any recommendations in the comments below. Thank you for watching and subscribe for the future reviews within